We've already learned that the law of demand tells us that there is an inverse relationship between a good's price and the quantity of the good that consumers are willing and able to buy in a particular period of time. For example, let's look here at the market for rice. Let's assume that the blue demand curve represents the quantities that consumers in the market of rice are willing and able to buy at a range of prices. With this demand curve, we can put a few prices on here. We'll call them P1, P2, and P3, and we can identify the quantities that correspond with each of these prices. Notice that as the price of rice falls, the quantity demanded increases from Q1 at a price of P1 to Q2 at a price of P2 and Q3 at a price of P3. This illustrates the law of demand. As the price of rice falls, the quantity demanded by households increases. There is an inverse relationship between the price of rice and the quantities that consumers are willing and able to buy. What we want to talk about in this video is the rationale behind the law of demand. So the question we're going to answer is why. I'll look at the law of demand and say why. We're going to say why do consumers demand more of a good as the price falls and less of a good as the price rises? The answer to that question lies in two economic concepts known as the income effect and the substitution effect. These are the two rationales for why there is an inverse relationship between the price of a good and the quantity demanded. Let's start with the income effect. This is the idea that as a good's price falls, consumers' incomes appear to get larger. Now, let's assume that you have a fixed income of $10 per day. If a pound of rice costs $3, then this is 30% of your income, leaving you with only $7 left over. So let's put the price of $3 over here. $3 per pound. This is our labels per pound. The price of rice is $3 per pound and you have an income of $10. That leaves you with only $7 left over to buy other goods and services. But if the price of rice falls to $2, what has happened to your income? Well, in nominal terms, in terms of the actual income that you have, it hasn't changed at all. You still have an income of $10, but you now have $8 left over after you've purchased your daily pound of rice. Now that you have more disposable income, you might be inclined to buy more rice. So even though your income hasn't changed in terms of how many dollars you have, you feel richer. So the income effect says that as prices fall, consumers feel richer. Consumers feel richer. And for normal goods, if we feel richer, then we're inclined to buy a greater quantity of those goods. And this works in reverse as well. If the price of a good rises, so we can say as price rises, or as price increases, consumers' incomes appear to fall. We feel poorer. If the price of rice went from $2 back up to $3, then the consumer with only $10 of income per day now has only $7 after purchasing their pound of rice. And since we are inclined to buy less of most goods as our incomes fall, we demand a smaller quantity of the good as the price rises. The effect on consumers' disposable incomes of changes in the price of particular goods helps explain the law of demand. As prices fall, consumers feel richer, therefore they demand a greater quantity of normal goods. As prices rise, consumers feel poorer because they have less money left over after purchasing their goods, therefore they demand a smaller quantity of normal goods. There's another rationale for the law of demand, which economists refer to as the substitution effect. This is the idea that as a good's price falls, substitutes for that good appear to get more expensive. Therefore, this leads to an increase in the quantity of the cheaper good. What we're talking about here is why the quantity demanded for rice would increase when the price of rice decreases. And the rationale is that as rice prices fall, we'll look here again at the lower price of rice, the price of pasta doesn't change, but it appears that pasta is now relatively more expensive than rice, leading rational consumers to increase their consumption of the now cheaper good, rice. So even though the price of pasta did not change, a decrease in the price of rice has the effect of making the goods substitutes appear more expensive. Therefore, consumers now substitute the cheaper good, that's rice, in exchange for what they might have otherwise bought, which was pasta. And of course, this works in both directions as well. As price increases, substitutes now appear cheaper. Therefore, the quantity demanded of the now more expensive good decreases, causing a movement upward and to the left along the demand curve. So if rice prices go up, why does the quantity demanded for rice go down? It's not because pasta got cheaper. In fact, the price of pasta may not have changed at all. Rather, pasta now appears cheaper, and consumers who might have bought rice are going to instead buy the relatively cheaper substitute. The concepts we've discussed in this video are not the determinants of demand. Later on, you're going to learn that there are different things that can cause a shift in the demand for a good, either an increase in demand, which would be a shift to the right, or a decrease in demand, which would be a shift to the left. Included in these determinants of demand are the incomes of consumers and the price of substitute goods. But that is not what we're looking at here. What we're looking at here are the rationales for the relationship between a good's price and the quantity that consumers are willing and able to buy. The income effect says that as prices fall for a particular good, consumers of that good feel richer. Therefore, assuming that good is a normal good, they will consume a greater quantity of it. Vice versa, if the price goes up, consumers feel poorer. Therefore, they'll demand a smaller quantity of the good whose price rose. The substitution effect says that as the price of a good falls, substitutes now appear more expensive. Therefore, the quantity demanded of the good whose price fell will increase. Vice versa, if the price of a good rises, substitutes appear cheaper. Therefore, consumers will buy more of this substitute and demand a smaller quantity of the good whose price rose. These two rationales, the income effect and the substitution effect, provide us with an explanation of the law of demand.